We're going to do something a little different today with the remainder of our time. We have been in a series that's kind of bouncing around this summer, talking about the Holy Spirit. But we have a lot of other things going on. We had baptisms 2 weeks ago. We got to hear stories of how God is moving in people's lives. And one of the funny things is this. I find that when we do baptisms, often it's so good to hear people's story and how God is moving. But with that, there's a million stories in the room of what God's doing, and we don't always get to hear those. And so this last winter, in between Christmas and New Year's, that Sunday, where no one knows what day of the week it is and what time of the day it is, and everyone's still sleeping, that week in between Christmas and New Year's, we did a Sunday morning where we just had some people where we got to hear a little bit of what God's been doing in their life. And so we wanted to kind of continue this from time to time. And we know there's a million stories in this room and that so many different people have parts of their story they would love to share. But this morning we're going to have a little bit of a focus. We have two couples that I've kind of asked to come and just share and be part of this. And even take a little bit of a focus of marriage and family within their story. And so as I just kind of was thinking about different ways of how God is moving, I thought of these two families specifically right away of just, not that they're always getting it right, because they had to kind of wrestle with that. They're like, I don't think I should be up there. I don't think I'm the right person. We're trying to figure out a lot of stuff in our life. And I'm like, great, so are the rest of us, right? Nobody really wants to sit there and listen to somebody who has it all figured out and everything's going perfect, because you're like, great, my life is a wreck. So glad yours is going well. And so I'm like, listen, you don't have to have it all together. But instead, these are just two families who, I think for a lot of us, we look at them and you're just like, wow, you're really trying to integrate so much of what God is doing into every aspect of your life. And so we want to just hear from a little bit of that. And I know sometimes it's going better than others with that. And I know a lot of us are doing that. But so I have Brian and Janelle Terhard that are going to come join me up here. And then as well, Charlie and Brianna Faust. So why don't you guys kind of give it up as they come up here. Changing it up from first service. All right, and we talked about we'll hold the microphones a little closer to our mouth this service, so hopefully you guys can hear us. We should have all these microphones coming through in the translation as well. So, okay, we're going to start with this. Just so that everybody here can kind of get to know you a little bit. 90 seconds for each couple. Give us a little bit of a background, who you are, what you do. You live kind of in the area. What does that kind of look like? Just a real quick overview. If it turns red, it's on. You have to kind of press with the front of your finger.
My name is Charlie Faust. I grew up here in Long Prairie. This is my wife, Brianna. We farm. I farm with my father, actually, and she has her own farm. I'm the 5th generation on our family farm, and I grew up going to church here in Long Prairie, not at this particular church, but so I've been a Christian my whole life, and now we have 3 children of our own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to add on to that, I grew up in Osakis, so not too far from here, and we met at youth group. So we've been together we'll be married 12 years here in August. And then,
yeah.
I know in one of the questions Josiah had kind of briefed us with is how did we come to River of Life? And so we were invited to River of Life in Sauk Center by some family friends, and that was 11 years ago. So we went to River of Life in Sauk Center for about 6 years, and then we've been here about 5 years, give or take.
Another family that has, left Sauk Center and come to the clearly superior church
the better side.
Here in Long Prairie.
I'm Janelle Terhar. I have lived here in Long Prairie for about 2 years. I've worked in this community for about 8 years. The Lord called me to be a family nurse practitioner about 10 years ago, and I'm thankful for that knowledge that I've been able to gain because I look at myself like I'm one mom helping another. This is my husband.
And something you didn't share in the first one, but I feel like you're kind of usually open with this, and you spent time in the military overseas.
Yep. Yeah, so I grew up Catholic. Got confirmed and did the whole thing, and then I was deployed to Iraq when I was 19, And the Catholic service was during, when I had to sleep or when I, had to work. And so I started going to an Assemblies of God church in Iraq, found Jesus. You can find Jesus here in the States also. You don't have to go to Iraq. Like, that's great. But yeah, so then when I came back home, I started going to River of Life Cold Spring. And then
Not affiliated with us, but same denomination,
Yeah. Yep.
similar church. We have friends there.
Yeah, yep. And then so when we moved here, the Lord convicted us. We were going to continue to go to that church, but the Lord convicted us that we were partially moving to a community and not fully investing. And so then when we moved here, we decided to start coming here, and it's been a really great transition for us.
I'm Brian. Obviously, she gave you the rundown of everything that we got going, but yeah, I grew up in St. Cloud. I met Janelle, and well,
In order to date me, and one of my rules was you had to go
yeah.
to church with me.
I've heard this story.
yeah, that's
And
correct.
Brian, when you first moved here, you were working.
I was doing plumbing.
Doing plumbing.
My background is plumbing and HVAC, so.
Okay, and so kind of the way we kicked this off first service was a really open-ended question of just like, okay, in the last couple months, couple years, like how is your walk with God? How have you seen God kind of moving in your, not just your own individual lives, but also kind of your marriage, your family, like everything with that? What's some of that experience been in the more recent years?
I guess I can go again. Actually, I didn't. When Josiah asked if I could come up on stage, or Brianna and I, if we could, I didn't feel like I was supposed to be up here. I felt unworthy, and I was kind of questioning my own faith at the time. And I expressed that to Josiah, and he said, "Yeah, that's why I asked you." No, actually, I think he actually said, "Perfect."
He's like, I'm going through struggles right now. And I'm like, perfect. He's like, he probably didn't feel like that was perfect. But
No, I did not feel like it was perfect. You see, part of the reason why I felt unworthy is this winter, Brianna and I went on a missions trip to UAE, and Josiah came with us, and it was an amazing trip. And we got to really press in and get close to God. And at that trip, I was probably at the highest of my spiritual life. And then we come home, and this is March now, and I get just thrown in to farming. And we just had a struggle this spring with the planting season, trying to get the crop in, and we had breakdown after breakdown. In fact, one day, Brianna brought us lunch, and she could tell it was stressful, and we were fixing the tractor. And later that night I come home and she said, "Well, did the rest of your day go better?" I said, "No, we had not one, not two, but 3 flat tires after that." And we never fixed what we were working on while she was there. So that was kind of the theme of my season, and it was really wearing me down. And in that time, you start to wonder, God, if you want me to follow you, why don't you make it a little bit easier? But I'm glad that Josiah asked me up here, because it's helped me to reflect and remember that, maybe I'm supposed to be learning something. Maybe it's not supposed to be just easy all the time.
well, and one of the things that we talked about a little bit is just the idea of there are often spiritual highs in our life. For teenagers, this is a constant. Like, you're going to camp or youth convention. You're like, oh, wow, it's so amazing what God's doing. And then you're kind of coming back down. And for adults, maybe like if we do a global trip or something. And let me just say, there's some real spiritual warfare that happens following some of these like great spiritual moments. Often, I will even talk to people that get baptized about this. They'll get baptized, and then the next month following that is like the worst month of their life. And they just feel, and often they'll end up going a different direction. And it's like, there are these moments where you'll have a spiritual high, and that's great, but you're not actually meant to stay there. Like Jesus going up on the mountain with the transfiguration, and Peter's like, Lord, this is great. Like, look at what's happening. Let's build altars up here. And he's like, no, we don't stay here. We need to go back down. And I think we need to learn how to go from a spiritual high, let it be a springboard and a good thing, but fully expect that we are coming back down. And I think like the enemy can put a lie in our head that we're actually less than if we don't stay at this level. Nobody can stay at that level. You're not meant to stay at that level.
Exactly.
And so it's learning how to come back down and integrate that into our daily walk. That is incredibly difficult, but so incredibly important. Yeah.
For me, it's farming can be stressful, having kids can be stressful, and being home with them all the time, but also...
Because you have a flower farm.
Yeah, so he said...
Back
I have my
40,
yeah,
which is different
so
from what Charlie's
I
doing.
do a cut flower farm, so I grow my own flowers and sell them with arrangements and stuff. So that's awesome and fun, and having the kids along the ride with us, but at the same time, like farming and business and homeschooling and kids, like God has really been stretching my capacity, and that has been just a good thing, but also very challenging. Like, okay, God, what do I need to focus on right now? And he just continues showing me, like, just focus on me. Like, but that's hard when you're, especially, like, I don't like to say we're busy, but it is a really busy season in life. And so just trying to feel like you're above water a little bit. So that's kind of been what I've been feeling lately.
So 2 years ago, the Lord called us to sell our brand new house that we had, that we thought we built for our forever home, and to move here. Convicted us pretty significantly to the point where we couldn't ignore it. And 3 weeks before we were ready to close,
Because you were working here.
I was working here, yep, and I've been working here for 8 years, and was planning on leaving and going back to the VA, and the Lord... I even went as far as applying for a job at the VA because I didn't really necessarily want to listen to the Lord, and did not even get an interview.
Remember what happened to Jonah when he tried doing that?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. I know.
I think you got off lucky here. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Think of me. But yeah, so our house that we were going to move to fell through. We thought we were going to be homeless, and the Lord just was really clear, like, keep your eyes on me. And another home came up the next day, and we were able to move, and we weren't homeless, praise the Lord. But with that move, with interest rates, we, took on a pretty significant financial burden. And shortly after we moved, the Lord called Brian to quit his job and open his own business. And I'm like, wait a minute, can't you make it a little easier? But within the process, it's really defined us. Coming to this church has made us grow. It's made us spiritually grow. At the time, things, over the last several years, Brian's not a natural leader. He doesn't do well with people in general. He would prefer to be in the woods by himself.
True.
So leading comes very natural to me, and it's something that didn't feel right in our marriage, and it didn't feel right with our children that I was leading our family spiritually. And through all this, it was just like I was doing an extra job that I wasn't fit for. Like I felt like I'm, a triangle trying to fit in a box. It's just not working. And so through this whole process, it's kind of, because I like to see the finish line and just, what do we have to do? What's our itinerary and how do we get there? And so through this whole process of, Brian quitting his job and just us trusting the Lord has made it very clear that he, what he wants the end goal to be. But through the process, it's been very, lots of walls and a lot of financial hardships. And when Brian and I moved here, at our last church, it was easy to not always tithe because we had, a lot of millionaires in our church. And there was,
That's true. That's accurate.
so like
I know
you'd
the
look
church
around and
they
I'd be
came
like,
from.
Well, do we really have to tithe this? Like these people pick it up this week, or or do we,
Yeah.
we did it, we did that, or like volunteering or doing certain things, and it was something that when the Lord called us here, it was Brian and I committed right off the bat, like we're going to tithe our 10% and we're going to live with our lives with our hands open. And we're going to just give when the Lord puts it on our hearts, and we're not going to question it. And if we need to open our home to people, we're going to open our home to people, and we're going to just live our lives completely openly.
With that being said, we did that though too.
Yeah.
You should probably explain that on how we.
Yeah, we've always lived our lives open, but
I'd say even the first time I met you guys, like you guys have always been,
Yeah, very
whatever's
open.
yours is kind of everybody's. That's been a running
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, but it's, when we moved here, it just became more of a priority.
Yeah.
More of a priority for us. And through that, Josiah kind of pushed Brian out of his comfort zone.
You did.
I liked it better when you were sitting further away. I feel like you're going to slap me. We're sitting close enough, and I know his story and how much he's been pulled out of his comfort zone. I want to. Now I have him sitting up here in front of everybody with
Don't
a
worry,
microphone in
Josiah.
his hand.
I won't hurt you.
So, yeah, Brian, how about for you? Like the last couple of years, what has this been?
It's been a roller coaster. You have your ups and downs, walls that get put up, but he always knocks them down for me and just keep going. And you know what? When I get one, there's always another, and there's another. Before you know it, I'll be at the end of this road, and well,
The Lord will call us to another.
yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And there's always something that he always puts up for me, but he always provides too.
Great.
Now, I know we kind of talked in first service. A lot of you guys, a big part of your story is getting pulled out of your comfort zone. What does that look like to be a follower of Jesus? And I'm going to actually even make this more specific. What does it look like to be pulled out of your comfort zone as not just as a Christian, but as a parent and or as a spouse? Like how has this season maybe been a little bit more trying or difficult, or how have you seen God show up in different ways? Like as you've kind of walked this out, but specifically from that parent and spouse role, because I think that can be really hard to always do that like together and to walk that out. And there's just so many areas in our world that we compare ourselves in. And I think comparing ourselves to other parents and thinking they're better parents than I am, or they're a better husband than I am, they're a better wife than I am, like all these different things, like we're always comparing ourselves. How have you been able to kind of walk that out, even just as a couple in this more difficult, challenging season, but you're really trying to focus on Jesus? It's a different question than what I kind of gave them first
Making
service.
us
Now they're
think.
thinking a little more.
I don't really know what a comfort zone is right now.
Because you're so far away from it?
Well, I guess I would just say that being a farmer, you're on your own, right? It's my dad and I. We farm together. We don't have much help. So everything that happens on the farm gets done by one of us. So when something breaks down, he's 67, so it's now mainly my responsibility. Charlie, you just go fix that for me. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is when things don't go right, I've kind of developed the habit of just fixing it and pressing in and getting it done with brute force if it needs to be. And I'm realizing and trying to release that and try to put my hands up and say, Lord, can you help me? Or show me what I need to do, depending on the situation.
I think that's so good because especially, I think, for anybody, but especially for men, there's this idea that the more independent you are, the more you only rely on yourself, the better and stronger a man, a husband, a father, a provider you are. And yet that is so opposite of what Jesus calls us to be as leaders. Anybody that's in leadership, when you look at Jesus' model, it is this dependence on God and constant surrender and this community type approach. It's probably really hard for a lot of guys, I think, to do exactly what you're kind of trying to walk through, Charlie.
But there's also a balance too. It's not like I can just, okay, the planter broke down, I'm going to go sit on the chair and wait
Yep.
for it to miraculously be fixed.
Yeah.
So
Gonna lay hands on the planter, and it could happen, but yeah.
Well, kind of on that, like God has challenged me through with the kids and with Charlie and just family in general or whatever might be happening is, okay, did I pray about it? Because a lot of times I don't. I just do it like what Charlie said or have him do it for me or something. But okay, stop, take some time to pray about it and which direction should we go? How should we handle this situation?
Yeah, so throughout Brian and I's walk, about 10 years ago, we decided to no longer drink and to really kind of pave a new way for our children. We grew up in a family at baptisms. There would, who's bringing the alcohol? We come from families that, swearing and Coors Light are the foundation, But it's, it's something that we decided to, we're going to live a different way and we're going to, just really try to make those spiritual highs that we feel part of our foundation to build our house on and to make it so that it's not something that feels like it's lost, but something that's ingrained in us and some of the goodness that we know that we can have. I think that it's the comfort zone with Brian and I, we've, because it's in marriage, there's a lot of times when you just necessarily don't like each other. And I think that it's through these hard times, I think society kind of calls us to go away from our spouse or to, go to your girlfriends or go on a weekend trip or, and Brian and I through this have learned really to lean into each other. Iron sharpens iron. And, if you feel like you're being sharpened too much, maybe you need to get stronger.
Sometimes I don't like to be sharpened.
He doesn't ever like to be sharpened.
Yeah.
It's true.
But it's the walls and the hardships that we've experienced, just with financial things through this whole thing. There's been times when, and I know people are always like, oh, a check just showed up. But that's like actually happened to us. It's when it's unexpected and when we didn't think we needed it, when we were able to give the money to other people. And so it's been a really, really wonderful process. There's been, things defining for both of us through this, just even with my job or, it's just parenting. My children are all so very different. We picked up Reed and she said, well, he was a wild one today. It's my oldest daughter is wild and free horse girl. And it's like, never been on a horse. Like I was on it once last week and she sedated it. Yeah, I'm not a horse girl. It's weird, right? I'm raising horse people.
Yeah, like we've
not
gone
one.
out to your house and rode
Yeah.
horses, but
yeah.
that's
No, it's
all
not
right.
something
This
that
is
I'm
news
interested.
to me.
I actually got on a horse last week, and I'm like, why isn't it moving? And Isabel's like, well, I sedated it so you don't get hurt.
I mean,
It's
that might have been wise.
Yeah, right. But it's just with farming. Like we're not nearly at your guys' level, but just with animals and teaching life lessons to your children, and we've just we're at the point where we just are like, you're my person. And
Yeah.
we're gonna lean on each other. And when I say something, it's not to criticize you. It's because I love you and I want you to be your best form of yourself.
Okay.
And we get that in community. We get that by.
And with that being said, like for me, it was always hard to take because I always thought Janelle was criticizing me and trying to tell me what to do and how to do it. I didn't take that for what it was. I just took it as she was criticizing me and I just brushed it off and I'd never listen to her and just keep going.
Yeah.
And that was
Like,
really
oh, you
tough.
think you can do better?
Yeah,
type of
that was
mindset.
really tough for her because
Yeah.
she doesn't have that demeanor. Like, no, this is the way it's going to go. This is what you're going to do. And well,
Very mission focused.
yes, she is.
I don't know if I've shared this with you. I feel like I have. I had met one of your bosses at the hospital, Jose, who's kind of in charge of the hospital there, described Janelle as a Lamborghini with bicycle brakes. And I was like,
That's
it's one of the most accurate descriptions of a person I've ever heard.
That's very accurate.
I love it. I'm like, you have this massive supercar that the brakes that they've put on there are just these tiny little meant for a bicycle. And you're like, I love it.
That's true.
Yeah. Brian, how has man, this seems like the last couple of years has been a really big shift just for you. I mean, personally, in the way the family interacts, the way things happen, how has that been, walking through that? What areas have you really felt like a lot of extra tension and pressure that you've had to just give way to God, or how have you kind of done that?
I think for me, a lot of it isn't in the finance department. Me not working, we only have one income. And the little bit of income that we get off of selling a few beef cows here and there, well, that isn't enough. And that's been the struggle for me with this project that we have going on. It's a wound that doesn't stop bleeding. And I tell you what, I gotta get that so it's done. But anyhow, that's been my biggest struggle lately. Because
you guys felt called to kind of start a senior living
Yes.
home
Correct.
out in Swanville. So you stopped working as HVAC plumber,
Yep.
jumped into trying to build this thing from scratch.
Well, no, he's remodeling.
Remodeling,
Word.
yes, yeah.
But with Brian, he looks at it as a bleeding ulcer. But I'm like, this has been the most defining thing you've ever done.
But it's also really hard because you're like,
correct. But it's pulled him out of his comfort zone.
yeah,
And it makes him lean into God. It's made him
because you felt God call you guys to
Correct.
do this, to leave your job to do this.
It's made him surrender, pick up the torch of the leader of our household,
Yeah,
which is, the way it's intended to be. And it's been very defining for him in the last, 5 years, I would say, for sure.
yeah.
What about ministry? Talk about that.
Yeah, you've kind of, as you were jumping in and taking on a little more responsibility in that kind of, more responsibility, you were responsible, but you were doing that, you jumped in here kind of roughly at the same time.
Yeah, you actually called me to do the ushering, to be the lead usher. Took me out of my comfort zone again. I don't know, what is the story with you taking me out of my comfort zone?
We say this often. It's my favorite thing to do.
I really like a cushy pillow.
Yep.
But anyhow, that was kind of a turning point. It's been good. There's times it's a struggle, but
Yeah.
we get through it.
And you've seen a difference even just in your life as you've kind of stepped in
Yep.
to greater
And
community in the church.
Yep. And there's more community with the men in the church, the women. You get to meet a lot more people.
Yep. For sure. All right, let's do this. Okay, so as you guys can see, there's so much more to any story sitting in both of these, in all these chairs. We also know there's a ton of stories in the room. This is just two, 4, however you want to count it, stories. And we just push really heavy that community and sharing those stories and walking with each other is such a massive part of what this is. And so I'd encourage you guys to either just kind of, connect with them, hear more of the story, connect with others, share your story. I can guarantee right now, even as I say those words, that probably more than half the room is sitting here thinking, I don't have a story. My story that I do have isn't worth sharing. All these different things that go through your mind. And just understand that's not true. That's absolutely not true. I think everybody is kind of, you're walking this out with God, and sharing that with people around you is massive, and it's important. So kind of one last thing here then from each of you guys, what would be one maybe challenge that you have for people sitting in the room? Kind of like what we do at the end of baptism, where they're like, hey, do you have a challenge? Or is there just something else that you felt like you haven't shared that you're like, man, I feel like I need to share this?
I just really want to see a lot more people, in our community at the church get involved. This everybody, there would be a lot more. I don't know the word for it, but anyhow, it's just get involved with the church.
It's made a big difference in your life.
Correct. Yes, it has.
As far as even just spiritual growth.
Communion.
And,
you have communion.
yeah.
Community.
Yep. I mean, all of that. Yeah, it's kind of been a theme today. I feel like
Yeah.
we've landed on of, for sure.
I think one of my big challenges came to me during COVID, I was on maternity leave, and I'm in healthcare, which, COVID hit a little bit differently. And before COVID, I just thrived myself on having a busy schedule. I just enjoyed it. I enjoy people. I enjoy socializing. Brian does not. And so it was kind of one of those, things where it was a pull. And during that time, it just really convicted me, like, you need to be more intentional with your time. You need to give the people that you live with your best self. The people at the gas station or the grocery store shouldn't see this nice woman and then you go home and you're, just exhausted and you don't give that same person to your people. Yeah. So giving your people that are sitting next to you and that you do life with your best. And we don't do busy anymore. We do intentional. And so if we're spending time with people, it's intentional. And we want you to just, really know that we, love you and we care about you. And when you're in the busy and you're looking at the next thing to do and the next thing to do and the next thing to do, you can't really do that. And the people that you're with feel that. So, when you're not fully booked, it just allows you to be more intentional, and it allows you to really just kind of shine Jesus's light and just feel full. I think Brian and I, for the first time really in our lives, we just feel full. We feel good. We have struggles. We have hardships.
I was going to say, that's not without, you guys have
Right.
had some really challenging times in the last couple of years. We've sat and talked about those.
We have significant challenges with our children, I think.
Yeah, children, finances,
Yeah,
everything
it's,
just.
we had to pull a calf, a week ago, and now we're, nursing this heifer back to life. It's never ending. But it's something that we just have a good group of people. We have a good village. We've been here for 2 years, and I feel like the people in this church are my lifelong people. And it's just been really good. But we wouldn't have that village of people. It was just last year. I said something to Erin May. I'm like, gosh, I should really, join a life group. She said, it's time to dip your toe in, Janelle. But, through that life group, I developed people. We got on another level, and we made connections. And, I've made some wonderful life friends, and Brian has too. And it's just like we have a sense of community now. And it's, and we're called to lead a group. And it's not something that we have it all figured out, but it's, I'm one mom helping another. Let's do this life together,
Oh man, I feel like I could go a few different ways, and I'm going to share something that I didn't share in the first service, but after what Janelle said, something that I am thankful for Charlie and our family and what we do is we really focus on family time. Like you said, you're not going out with your girlfriends and he's not going out with his friends. You're not all over the place and you're not disconnected from one another. You're not just roommates or teammates. We try to intentionally be together. Meal times, for example, we make that a priority. Even when he's out in the field, I try my best to bring him meals so that we can all be together. And
I've seen pictures of that. The
Yeah.
minivan's out in the field, and you guys have the back open, and Charlie's out of the tractor, and you're all sitting there eating lunch together.
yeah, in our lawn chairs or picnic or whatever. It doesn't always happen, but we try our best to be together as much as possible, and then also be a part of the church as much as possible and connect with other families in the church. But I think our family wouldn't be as connected as it is without those meal times and those times to just pray together and connect together over the table.
And by the way, I did not coach them to be saying, get involved in church and be in these things. This is, all right, this was not
We're sharing it because it's changed our lives,
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but I was going to challenge everyone to be a part of a life group. Brianna and I started going to Sauk Center, River of Life Church, however many years ago, and we got plugged in with life groups right away, and we saw immediately how amazing they could be, and eventually we got into a life group that was a group of, 20 people, and it never stopped. We
Yeah,
kept
we went
meeting
for like 2.5 years.
for like 2.5 years. We're meeting every, I think, Tuesday night at church. And
we'd
finally,
bring food and we'd eat together. And
we would share meals, and eventually, Pastor Corey, I believe it was, he didn't say it was really a problem, but
so you guys got to meet other people too.
he then challenged us, saying, all right, you guys have built something amazing here. Now I want each of you couples to go and do it again. Start a new life group. And it wasn't that long after that Brianna and I realized that we should probably switch to Long Prairie, because it didn't make a lot of sense for us to drive 20 miles to Sauk Center when we could drive 2 miles here.
Pastor Corey, that's not what I meant.
See ya.
But anyway, life groups really are amazing to get to know your fellow church family members, and to really be able to, if you don't know someone, you can't really be vulnerable and tell them what you're going through. And it's really powerful to be able to open up to them and to be able to pray for each other.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this, maybe you've been in the room and you've tried one before and it just didn't pan out. Like, I've been in a lot of different life groups, and some of them were great relational groups. Some of them were more focused on kind of what we were studying, and some of them I became really great friends out of. Some of them it's just like, oh, it's great to get to know somebody. Like, life groups are kind of across the board. So maybe if you're sitting here and you're like, well, I tried one and it didn't really pan out for me. Like, keep going. Keep going. Like, I would keep trying different things. And so, and when we do things, I wanted to point this out. When we do things like the Guys Burger Night, Brian's kind of been headed some of that up for us. And Charlie, you were at the Guys Burger Night that we did. If you're sitting here and you're like, well, I'm not a social person. Okay, like,
They are not social.
Charlie and Brian are not your social people that are just like the butterflies, like, oh yeah, let's go hang out and talk. And yet, like, that was a great night. We went out to Charlotte Tavern and hung out. We're going to do another one just here at the church where we can actually spend some more time getting to know each other. And you guys hosted the women's night out at your house for a bonfire.
Yes.
Like,
Heads up, I am a social butterfly.
yeah. But that relational
Sometimes,
piece,
yeah.
guys, is so incredibly important.
sure.
Find that community.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, I want to do this. I want to just close in prayer. And so hopefully you guys just feel like that this story is something that that can resonate with you, that can challenge you, and just kind of even point you in a direction of like, all right, what if you feel like you are missing something? I want to challenge you that most often the first step to take is deeper into community. Because even if the community isn't necessarily what you need, the community is going to help you find what it is that you need. All right? And so don't miss that. Like, that is so key. So, God, we thank you for this time together. Lord, we thank you for this community. God, I pray for those that are maybe sitting in the room right now and they feel like they are in this room with a bunch of other people, but they're all by themselves. God, that they feel like they are isolated and they don't have that community. And God, maybe they're even wondering if they need that or not. Maybe they're sitting here thinking, I don't really need that. I'm self-sufficient. God, I pray right now that you would just help us to build the relationships we need. You have called us to do this together and not just by ourselves. And we need each other. God, and we need you desperately. We need that dependence on you. Help us just break from kind of the idolatry of self-independence, God, and just this idea that we can do everything on our own. Help us instead just begin to focus in on the way that you've created us to be. You said it's not good for man to be alone. And that was so much more than just creating Eve and a spouse there, Lord. It's so much more than that. We are relational beings. Even if it drains us, even if it's hard at times, God, that's what we are made for. And so help us move in that direction. Jesus, we ask this in your name. Amen. Amen.